been. Lols, everything that's been deleted. It's a good thing I don't keep anything on this computer that would ever be a problem. You got to stay safe out here. That's our first message. How's everybody doing? Happy Saturday. We are back in the studio. We made it back for another one. Today we are talking tariffs. By special request, we are talking tariffs, and it is going to be a good one. It was a good week, I feel like, for talking tariffs. Basically, there was in, out tariffs, and we are, I believe, on the out of the tariffs right now, so I don't believe the tariffs are going into place. But this was initially brought up because Trump had said some statements about specifically Canada. So we were watching something like this earlier today.
Canada, we find that they're charging us over 200% for dairy products. You know about.
So we were asked, basically, looking into tariffs. I got some notes written down here that we'll go through for sure as we talk about it. But just wanted to go through the main reason why we're covering it today is these tariffs were told me by somebody I was talking with online. They had said that 250% tariffs were coming on. And one of the things that's crazy is the 25% tariffs are crazy enough. A lot of people try and say that the left is trying to vilify tariffs right now. It's not really true. I think one of the biggest things that we're trying to say is that the way I like to put it for anybody who doesn't understand is tariffs are a lot like chainsaws. They have a very distinct purpose and they can be used in an effective manner. But if you start waving them around wildly, you're bound to hurt somebody. I think that's the biggest thing that you could say about the Trump tariffs is even if you're a fan of Trump and even if you're a fan of tariffs, these Trump tariffs are just done in a very sloppy way. The kind of back and forth that we're seeing tells you a lot about that. We'll play a little bit more of him here. He's talking about retaliatory tariffs for a position that Canada has. I haven't heard about this position. He says he'll show it, but I don't see any evidence.
Well taken care of, but under Biden, they just kept raising it. Very difficult to deal with the Canadian representatives. 250% for dairy products. Tariff.
Mind you, this is our ally that he's talking about. Very difficult to deal with your ally.
So where do you hear that? You don't hear that. They have a tremendously high tariff. Give you the exact numbers in a little while coming out on lumber. So they sell this number. They have
Here's a question. Are tariffs good or are tariffs bad? Or is it okay to say out loud now, the quiet part, that, oh, it's okay when we do it to you, but don't you ever do it to us? Because wouldn't a natural question from a curious Trump supporter, hey, if we do tariffs and tariffs are so good, why aren't tariffs, and again, this is for the people with the simple understanding, and we're going to go through what tariffs are after this video, because this is what got us on it initially, so I want to listen to this. But we'll talk about like what they are. But wouldn't the natural question be, well, why aren't the other countries just free to do their own tariffs? If it's good for their country and it's good for them, and it's good for we do ours, they do theirs, kind of competitive free market. Why do you get to then vilify your allies for saying, hey, you aren't doing enough by us, you have some tariff against us, tariffs are bad, and so we get to do our tariffs, but our tariffs are all good, they won't cause you any economic distress. I guess they're switching on that now. I've heard messaging is changing to a no pain, no gain type of thing. But before that, they had always said that the tariffs were going to be not a net positive, a complete positive. Everything was going to go well at every step of the way. There was never this pain talked about. And if you are a Trump supporter or you are a curious person who's a conservative that happened to sit out and you are wondering why you feel duped, it's because you've been duped. They said they were going to do it one way, and then it's done very differently. And now you're getting different messaging that, oh, well, there has to be some amount of pain, and these prices aren't as easy to bring down as we thought. But as you see this tariff war kind of get started, it's kind of interesting that we get to vilify the right is accusing the left of vilifying all tariffs, when in actuality, the right is saying, well, all other tariffs by every other country, those are terrible, and we have to do what we can to combat that completely by, oh, what are we going to do? What creative methods? What negotiating? No, we're just going to do our own tariffs, which they'll retaliate to, right? They're going to have their own tariffs, and then it's going to be, just doesn't make any sense. That's why these people can't govern.
Tremendous. They make it impossible for us to sell lumber or dairy products into Canada, but our numbers are a tiny fraction of that, almost non-existent. And what we're doing is freeing up our forests from the environmental nonsense that they put on them, where you can't cut down a tree. And we have to.
Well, and that's the funny part too. Like, I haven't, again, taken a look at these specific tariffs, but it's so funny to attack just a high number. Oh, they have a high tariff on us. Have you ever looked into a reason as to why? I'm sure if we looked into it for a little bit, we could find a reason to why. He hasn't provided any evidence, so I refuse to provide any of my own. I'll do when he does.
Build the firewalls, and those trees are sold. But we're freeing it up on an emergency basis, because Canada has been ripping us off for years on tariffs for lumber and for dairy products. 250%. Nobody ever talks about that. 250% tariff, which is taking advantage of our farmers. So that's not going to happen anymore. They'll be met with the exact same tariff unless they drop it. And that's what reciprocal means. And we may do it as early as today, or we'll wait till Monday or Tuesday. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to charge the same thing. It's not fair. Never had.
So this is the negotiation tactic. You see a high number on here, you jump at a high number. So you see something like this, and again, we haven't even validated it. He refuses to show anything, so why do I have to prove anything? The big thing with these is negotiating in this all or nothing type of way. If you've played any poker, how many times can you go all in? Not in some movie, not in a video game, but in real life. How many times can you go all in a night? If you only can buy in once, if you only have the money that you came in with, or you only have the one buy-in, how many times can you just all in on every single negotiation, on every single deal? You go all the way to the end. You say, oh, I got a pair of aces in the hole. And then another one comes up. I'm all in. Okay, cool. Do you do the same thing when you get a pair of queens? Do you do the same thing when you get, and this is an apt analogy, I think, because this is something we could talk about playing cards with, because this is something similar. They talked about the whole playing cards business when it came to war, and I thought that was disgusting. But when it comes to this, Trump, you're talking about just negotiations, and you're starting negotiations with our closest ally. Is it always best to go all in on every negotiation? I think we're seeing from the markets, and he said he doesn't care about the short-term markets, but we're seeing from the markets the volatility that has come from this negotiation style is not good for investment. We are not seeing more people go. Because I do want to stress this. I don't vilify all tariffs. I'm not saying all tariffs are bad. I would have to look into what Canada is doing. I would have to look into why they are doing what they are doing. The tariffs sound pretty high. You know, when you look at that percentage margin, the 250%, if true, because Trump is a liar, so why would I take him at face value? But say it were true, I would have to look into what that is, not just say outright, oh, a tariff on this thing is bad, boo them. Same thing with Trump when he puts out a tariff. Oh, here's the thing, boo bad. I think one of the things that gets said is that we won't give credit where credit is due. We will. There is just no credit due pretty much anywhere. If there is something that comes out that we just don't care about or is relatively good, you just don't hear about it. You hear uproar because things are ridiculous. Wielding tariffs in this way is like that chainsaw analogy. You're going to whack somebody in the head like Elon, swinging it around with the random cuts. Eventually, you're going to cut somebody who works on the nuclear team, who does something important or vital to the government where, oh, everybody's waste, fraud, and abuse until they're not waste, fraud, and abuse, are they? Until they're necessary, until you need them to be there. One of the things about tariffs, if used correctly, there are legitimate uses for tariffs, right? I wrote down a couple here. So national security, one thing that you can use. Specific critical industries that tie into national security. Say it was so important to you that it continued success for your specific industry that you're trying to protect needs some amount of tariff so that you can keep that industry booming in your country where it relies on it. Say it was, I don't even know real world examples, but you can imagine situations where an industry would become so vital to a country that yes, we do. If you want to go outside of this, you will pay us a fee, and then we will use that to prop up this industry. That's how it would typically go. That's how the people who say we vilify tariffs outright. I swear, or just not listening to us talk about tariffs. It just doesn't make sense if you are. So, like we were talking about, here's a good one: domestic industry protection. And when it comes to that, the critical industry might be something like something that you need manufactured in for security reasons or something like that. That may be it. Or it might be protecting some industry that you deem important to the detriment of other industries, right? So one of the big things you'll see is to protect the like cars or something like that. You see a tariff on the cars that are imported from outside, so the cost goes up on those from the people who import from outside all the cars. So you hopefully stoke your domestic industry and protect them with these higher prices. So if they're making a reasonably similar product for a reasonably, around the same time, around the same price, they should hopefully enjoy some of this protection. And if they don't, the government, again, gets the money. If you do want to import, go for it. But you will pay us, this thing gets passed on to the consumer, and the tax of it ends up with the government, so they can do whatever they deem necessary with those funds. Say you want to prop up those industries, anything like that, this is your time to do it. You have that money to do it. So there are legitimate purposes. You would have to justify those. And then, of course, punishment. Punishment is one of the things that tariffs are used for, as a sanction, as a sort of punishment for countries, or retaliatory tariffs. He was just talking about it earlier. If you have a tariff from a country that you feel is completely unfair and they have no justification for it, you would absolutely slap on some retaliatory tariffs. We've seen that heavily throughout the last couple weeks and months with, months plural? Who knows? Time is a weird one right now. Basically, with Trump, you've seen it all across the world. He announces some tariff. They automatically, almost every single country, I think every single country, has instantly announced some form of retaliatory tariffs, and some of them haven't even taken them down. It's one of those things where, fine, if you want to start dealing this way, we have to start dealing this way. So you wave them around, but you hit somebody that you're not supposed to, like your ally, and you're using this extreme negotiating tactic instead of, hey, let's have a conversation like we did last time when we all signed an agreement on these issues. Why can't we come to it again? Especially with our closest allies. It doesn't bode well for the market. This is one of the big things that I even wrote down in the notes to get to, is if you're a Trump fan, how could you be supportive of the way he's doing these? Even if you are supportive of tariffs on, like me, you think there are some legitimate uses, and you disagree with me and say that these are legitimate uses. Say these are the way to do them. Is this really the way to do it? Is this the way you'd conduct yourself? If it were you in the chair, I feel like a lot of people can't do that. They get caught up in trying to make excuses for the guy in the chair now. If you were there, would you do this? No? Then why can't you vilify the person who isn't doing it for you? It baffles me that people can't see that they've been duped. Let's move on, because there's a decent bit more to get to with tariffs.
Has been fair, and they've treated our farmers badly. Look, our country's been ripped off by everybody. That stops now.
See, the problem with that narrative is who signed the last agreement? Who has this in place? If this was something, and I don't expect real answers because there are no real answers, because they just make things up as they go. As things become popular, I think tariff became a popular thing for him, so he's just running with it. Even when his most ghoulish advisors, I think, are now telling him he probably should pull off from this path, I think he is still continuing down because he finds it really, really popular. He convinced people that they work, and so now they have to work, even though he doesn't understand the gravity of what he's doing. He negotiated these terms. The agreement that stands is his agreement. He was president when it happened. I'm pretty sure that's the one that he missigned the agreement. It was the renegotiation of NAFTA. It was new USMC, United States, Mexico, Canada, USMC. It was the new agreement that was signed, but it's you. If these tariffs were unacceptable, or if these terms were unacceptable, or if the way that we can conduct ourselves is unacceptable, what was different then? What has changed drastically between now and then? Or are we always just getting ripped off every 4 years? And that's the thing. You could say if there was a complete overhaul of government like they've been doing or something like that, these drastic changes might have happened, but you didn't see these drastic changes happen. Everything was going fairly well. We were doing well, especially compared to the rest of the world when it comes to inflation. So why are these drastic wave the chainsaw about motions necessary when you negotiated us into this agreement? Why do you have to hack our way out of it with our two closest allies? Canada, which is, I believe, our biggest market partner. That is why the markets are so awful right now, is because they enjoy stability, and this tariff back and forth, will they, won't they, is the opposite of stability. If you had to put long-term investment, if your career was based on making long-term investment right now, what do you really feel comfortable putting your money into that is going to go up consistently right now? That's a really difficult question for anybody out there. If you're ever wondering why the tickers have been red lately, why the numbers are going down, if you had to make long-term investment based on what you've seen this last week, I think there were, we'd call them lead changes in sports. You know, it goes from one side to the other side. You went, yes, no, yes, no. That is not good. We like stability, not volatility when it comes to markets. Not we. I'm not part of this. I got no fucking money. I got no fucking money. But that at least explains where the 250% number came from. So Trump saw a 250% number on a tariff between Canada and the United States, and then chose to make that everybody's problem. So we're looking at that. One of the things about contextualizing information and making sure you read into backups is understanding why things are there. Maybe there is a specific industry that they think they need to protect. Maybe that was even negotiated in the agreement. You just don't know. And no evidence provided there, and rarely is, especially by the orange one, for any of those statements. Hey, they're doing this amount. Is that really true? Are we really paying that much? Is it a detriment to us? Because that's the other thing. Having a number on a sheet doesn't necessarily mean it's a detriment to us. Some of these things, especially when you get to the country scale, the massive scale that we're talking about, some of these things are a little bit more complicated than the number is high, so the number high bad. It may be the worst tariff against America. He may have found it, but he didn't provide any evidence there that it was actually hurting farmers. He just said it was hurting farmers. How much is it hurting farmers? To what degree is it hurting farmers? We know 250%. I hate numbers that are thrown out that way and then not backed up with any type of, give me something. Give me something. It hurt 500,000 farmers in the United States. Holy shit. Of the, how many farmers? Of the 600,000 farmers. Holy shit, that's incredible. We need to really do that. Instead, we get this kind of mealy mouth, oh, well, they're 250%. It hurt our farmers. They've been doing this terrible stuff to us the whole time. But it wasn't bad enough for you to do anything about it during your last negotiation. That's the real art of the deal, is you're never really done dealing, because you always just go back and say, oh, I wasn't done yet. It doesn't really seem very professional. I'm just not seeing the benefit of things like that. We're going to read a quick little bit just so we understand the background, like fundamental stuff of tariffs. And then we're going to read about one specific one that gets brought up quite a bit, because one of the notes that I have here point me in the direction of the extremes. You know, what can happen? Because everybody asks that, oh, well, what can happen? You're talking about these things. What are the possible negatives? So using them against your closest allies in this reckless fashion is dangerous. Everybody sees it on the world stage. All of our allies see this as they go to buy American goods, as they plan, whether it's weapons or tech, whatever we're selling on the world stage that people are buying. It is this extra question in the back of your mind is, will there be an additional tariff? Will there be an additional cost to this that eventually is felt by everybody? And if consumers stop buying our products, if we just rescind from the world stage, I feel like there might be a moment where, oh, we need to come back. We fucked up. We're really sorry. We did the whole tariff thing. We did the whole, fuck everybody else, isolationist, pull back. We are not welcome here. We gave this public messaging, but now, our economy is taking a hit, guys. Like it's time. Like, remember, we got really good products. Like, look at the iPhone 20. Like, come and buy our shit. Like, we will sorry, and we apologize, and we bad at economics. I don't think it will work, and I don't think anybody will have any pity for us because we've already rescinded so much. I think it may be too late by then, by the time we are willing to realize that we've made a huge tactical error. We gave up all of our soft power with USAID, and now we are rescinding from the world stage, and we are taking away the one big economic leader point that you have. You know, if we aren't, we are militarily dominant, but if we didn't have that, we always had the financial aspect. We were running the world, and there are people who say that none of this stuff will happen in the short term, that things can't happen. I've seen a lot of this back and forth where all the predictions say things are going to get bad, but they won't get so bad. Not so bad. Don't worry about it. It could never get. Some of y'all are just fucking wrong sometimes. Sometimes the ticker is supposed to go down to here, and he fucking drops through the fucking floor. That's how it fucking goes. And if you don't know that that is part of any prediction model or anything like that, I don't want you making my fucking predictions. Because that's what I feel like it's like. I feel like a lot of people are saying, oh, well, we know how bad it can get. We know from this and from that it can be pretty bad, and you can kind of see it. No, it could all at once turn poison. You could also have another calamity befall us, and then everything is exacerbated. Everything gets a million times worse. Oh, you pulled back from the market? Oh, we took over these trade routes. Oh, now you get charged extra, so you can't pay for these way through. There are so many domino effect things that you can't see. The butterfly effect, all this stuff you can convince people of. But when it comes to pissing off every country at the same time in the same way and telling them that you're not a reliable trade partner, especially because you won't treat your own allies well, there might be a domino effect. You may see something down the line, and you may just fucking deserve it. Let's get into what a tariff is. A tariff is a tax imposed by the government of a country or customs territory, or by a supranational union on imports or exports of goods. Besides being a source of revenue, import duties can also be a form of regulation of foreign trade and policy that taxes foreign products to encourage or safeguard domestic industry. This is kind of what we were talking about earlier. Protective tariffs are among the most widely used instruments of protectionism, along with import quotas and export quotas and other non-tariff barriers to trade. So protectionism is the next word that's brought up. I wonder what type of people use protectionist policies. Tariffs can be fixed, a constant sum per unit of imported goods or percentage of the price, or variable, the amount varies according to the price. Tariffs on imports are designed to raise the price of imported goods and services to discourage consumption. So this is what we were talking about, the protection of the domestic industry. You raise the price on them, and then if they do have to buy them, they have to go through that barrier. The intention is for citizens to buy local products instead, thereby stimulating their country's economy. Tariffs, therefore, provide an incentive to develop production and replace imports with domestic products. Tariffs are meant to reduce pressure from foreign competition and reduce the trade deficit. They have historically been justified as a means to protect infant industries and to allow import substitution industrializing a nation by replacing imported goods with domestic production. Tariffs may also be used to rectify artificially low prices for certain imported goods due to dumping, export subsidies, or currency manipulation. All right, so that just gives you a brief overview, and then we are going to jump over to one specific tariff, and this is, or I guess a tariff act, I should say, because I think it's multiple tariffs caught up in an act. So that gives you a rough idea of what it is and the justification for good tariffs. There are, if this was paired, we saw these tariffs, and it's funny enough, good old treasonous Trump is mad at Elon now, and we'll get into that. There's an article to read about that, about a spat that they got into with Marco Rubio, and we'll get into that as well. But one of the funny things is they say Elon, and he is sporadic and not doing things coordinated. You know, it's not coordinated enough. It kind of looks like you're all over the place. So when people come calling and you say there's hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud and you can turn up $20 million here and $20 million there, it's just not really a thing. And it's not fraud. It's waste and it's not really anything, it's just numbers on a sheet, you're not really making meaningful cuts. They can make those criticisms of him, but I would make the same criticism of the tariffs. There is a way where you could win me over with these tariffs, with the same ones that have been used. I feel like could be used in a positive way. If you using the same sweeping authority that the president is given when it comes to these matters of, I believe, like foreign trade, border, stuff like that, he has a lot of deference, like can go quite a bit. So when it comes to installing these tariffs, if it was paired with some real world pushing a bill through Congress, because you have the House and the Senate, if he was pushing a bill through that was consistently backing, say, domestic manufacturing. We know it's not going to be the most popular thing right away. We know that the factories aren't going to be built overnight, but we are going to start putting some funds aside for domestic manufacturing of, pick a fucking thing, XYZ. I don't fucking care. I would choose one of our enemies, say maybe Russia or China, to take some of these things from. It'll be really hard to compete against China, though. From everything I've seen, it'll just be really, really difficult. But this is what you're trying to do. This is your no pain, no gain strategy. If you would have been upfront with the no pain, no gain messaging, telling people that they might have to pay a higher price, but you'll be able to pay that higher price because everybody will have a job that pays them well. The message to his base that isn't necessarily college educated, that isn't necessarily making six figures, these people see an opportunity potentially to make more money doing similar work to what they're doing now, or similar work to what their parents or grandparents did. We can have a simple job and we can work it and we can do it. I understand the dream. I get it. I understand what you're dreaming about. It's just not done in a way that would ever make me believe that that fucking dream is coming true. Wake up. Nothing is happening. There is no bill. There is that is not happening. That is not the case. That is a false. I made that shit up, not like to trick anybody, but just that is what you would do if this was a meaningful change. If you were doing something that was going to create something meaningful for people, for working class people in our country. Instead of that, we are seeing, because it would be specific. You would have to do a lot of research. You would have to figure out, you would have to do market research to figure out where you're going to put that money. Where, if you are the government and you are spending some of this capital, you're taking funds away from DEI, call it whatever it is, but DEI initiatives or whatever, you take the money away from that and then you put it towards domestic manufacturing or the other things that you tariff against. This would be a great way to spur these things. Unfortunately, that is by the highest bullshitters in the land on the right, those people claim that that is the goal. It's just never the goal. It's tax cuts for the rich. We all know what you get when you give them actual power, and it's what you've gotten every time they've had power. Last time they had power in the House and the Senate and the executive, what did they do? Tax cuts for the rich. What are they doing again? Extending the tax cuts. Like, it's so simple to see. They just do the same thing over and over and over and over again. It's not really difficult to piece it together, but people buy the high-minded bullshit lie that they're sold instead of what's actually going on. Oh, well, what did you do last time you were in office? Well, the goal is to do this thing. Eventually, we will save your jobs. No. In the short term, like, what's going to happen? They never said no pain, no gain. They never said, hey, your prices are going to go up before they go down. But now that they're in power, that's all the messaging that we're going to receive. Hey, we always knew this was going to happen. So speaking of hardship, I feel like it's a good enough transition into a specific tariff act, the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act specifically, that people talk about nowadays, especially when it comes to the Great Depression and it kind of making things worse. So we're going to read up on that. Just make sure I got through all my notes. Oh, by the way, to anybody saying, so one of the justifications that I've seen, one of the lie justifications that I've seen is Trump is worried about fentanyl. That's one of the things with Canada is you just have to rework a new deal. You guys don't understand. A new deal is necessary because all this fentanyl is coming in. Why then, pray tell, did he pardon the guy who created the Silk Road? The guy who, I'm pretty sure that sweeping pardon went to the man who created the place where you could buy heroin, fentanyl, all that stuff directly to your door over the internet. He created a secure way to do that, and then was eventually, obviously not secure enough, arrested for that. So to the people who would say, to my detractors, the people who would argue that these tariffs are done in the best way and they are doing extremely well because the demand, the need for getting rid of fentanyl or something like that, how does it strike you that things like the pardon for the Silk Road guy, these things spit in the face of that narrative? Saying it is a national emergency, saying all that stuff is immediately betrayed by these things. Why then did they spend the time and the ink giving a pardon to this person if they truly care about drugs, if they truly care about crime? It's just not. So let's get through the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act to see what the aftermath was here. The Tariff Act of 1930, commonly known as the Smoot-Hawley Tariff or Smoot-Hawley Tariff, Hawley-Smoot Tariff, was a law that implemented protectionist trade policies in the United States. Sponsored by Senator Reed Smoot and Representative Willis C. Hawley, it was signed by President Herbert Hoover on June 17, 1930. The act raised U.S. tariffs on over 20,000 imported goods. The tariffs under the act, excluding duty-free imports, were the second highest in United States history, exceeded by only the tariff of 1828. The act prompted retaliatory tariffs by many other countries. The act and tariffs imposed by America's trading partners in retaliation were major factors of the reduction of American exports and imports by 67% during the Great Depression. Economists and economic historians have agreed that the passage of the Smoot-Hawley Tariff worsened the effects of the Great Depression. So, you can see how protectionist policies, like we saw before, that you could obviously call these, lead to some pretty clear problems. We're going to scroll down here and we're going to go to retaliation so we can see some more on that, because I think that's one of the big things that we're seeing now is the retaliation, and then people don't understand that the retaliation isn't just the hit that you take isn't just this one that you see. So one of the big things talked about now, 25% tariffs here, 25% tariffs there. I think China is the most recent one to do the retaliatory. But the idea that it's just that is not... If we're going to think about the long-term benefits for our country in the tariff war, you have to think about the long-term benefits for the other countries and the possibility that you may lose in certain aspects. So even if you overall win the trade war, you may lose certain battles. So people who think that want to simplify this down so that tariffs always sound good or tariffs always sound bad have it wrong. There will be some good from them, most likely, in certain areas, but to the detriment of quite a few more areas. It's what we do. It's a societal thing. We all take the hit for the weakest among us to do better. The car industry is doing terribly. We pass an import on that. Our price on cars goes up intentionally. We are trying to do that, making ourselves a better option, and then increasing, who knows who you're doing it for. It would be nice if we got an announcement what are we trying to do specifically with these tariffs? Not just, we're losing a trade bill. This is how we deal now. I just don't think that's very convincing anymore. That just doesn't do it for me. I'm going to need to see a little bit more than that. Like, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to protect a specific industry? Is this one for national security? You don't really get that clear messaging the same way you would if I feel like they were coming from an honest place. So let's read about retaliation, and especially some stuff that's happened in the past, to see what we might be in for, because the initial retaliation of the tariff is one thing, but then the long-term benefit of the country, what if that country decides to start making whatever product they got in America at home? We lose that forever. It's not just the initial retaliation. It's not just the initial cost. It is the long-term cost. We may not be their choice in the future. Retaliation. Most of the decline in trade was due to a plunge in GDP in the US and worldwide. However, beyond that was additional decline. Some countries protested, and others also retaliated with trade restrictions and tariffs. American exports to the protesters fell 18%, and exports to those who retaliated fell 31%. So that's an interesting one. The retaliations caused more, the economic one did more than the protests. That's very interesting. Threats of retaliation, it's the economy, stupid. Threats of retaliation by other countries began long before the bill was enacted into law in June 1930. As the House of Representatives passed it in May 1929, boycotts broke out, and foreign governments moved to increase rates against American products, although rates could be increased or decreased by the Senate or by the Conference Committee. By September 1929, Hoover's administration had received protest notes from 23 trading partners, but the threats of retaliatory actions were ignored. Sound familiar to anybody? Remember, this made the Great Depression worse. Some say, I don't know. In May 1930, Canada, the country's most loyal trading partner, retaliated by imposing new tariffs on 16 products that accounted altogether for around 30% of U.S. exports to Canada. Canada later also forged closer economic links with the British Empire via the British Empire Economic Conference of 1932, while France and Britain protested and developed new trade partners, and Germany developed a system of trade via clearing. The Depression worsened for workers and farmers despite Smoot and Hawley's promises of prosperity from high tariffs. Consequently, Hawley lost renomination, while Smoot was one of 12 Republican senators who lost their seats in the 1932 elections, with the swing being the largest in Senate history, being equaled in 1958 and 1980. Nations other than Canada that enacted retaliatory tariffs included Cuba, Mexico, France, Italy, Spain, Argentina, Australia, New Zealand, and Switzerland. Boom. So you see there, at least for me, it's pretty darn clear. You can tell how, what do they say? History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. You can tell how the tariffs that Trump was talking about, the retaliatory tariffs and the dust he's kicking up for the, let's just call it what it is, the trade war that he's starting. I was going to call it negotiations, but you really shouldn't just, you can't give them that messaging. I don't think we should give that messaging anymore. Fuck you, you're pieces of shit, and you lie about everything, so I'm not going to call situations what you want me to call them. These aren't negotiations. This is a trade war that you started for no reason, and you started it with our two closest allies, and just because you're deciding to back off right before the night of the first attack doesn't mean we're not, encroaching. Now he's talking about changing borders and stuff like that. It all just rings way too combative with a close ally. And remember, everyone is watching all the time. Everybody sees this as we go to make closer negotiations with partners, actual negotiations, like new negotiations with partners, people that we don't know, that we can't abuse because they have some reliance or some perceived reliance on us. They will look at us as worse trade partners, and they should. We have proven to be inconsistent. The American people proved not to care enough about this issue. I think the non-voter was the big one in the last election, and so now the non-voter bears the most responsibility. Maybe not the most. I guess the Trump voters are going to be, always blamed to whatever. But to anybody who knew it was wrong or knew that it was, anybody who knew what was coming or could see what was coming and then just didn't vote, it'd be an interesting position. I would love to talk it out with you and see why you think that is an okay position after everything that's happened, and how you would most likely bear some of the blame for it. Because it's a little, after knowing so clearly just what was going to happen, like not perfectly, but the disastrous policy, not being able to govern, this is all stuff we did tell you. So the Trump voter, that sucks. But the non-voter who knew all this could get so bad, but then looks around and says, oh, I didn't think it would get this bad. Fuck you. Like, not only were you told, you were shown. Not only were you shown, you were dragged across. Like, you over and over and over again, these were most likely the people that were complaining during the Trump presidency, during stuff like that. But then when it comes to stepping up and getting him out and making sure that he would have to go through a very difficult process in order to try and steal another election, because he tried to steal the 2021. We always say that because it's 100% true. He tried to steal the 2020 election. The difficulty he would have had in stealing this one had he lost the votes, he would not have been able to overcome, most likely. Even with support from lots and lots of people, the institutions that were in place would have been able to hold a lot easier. Now, when he's inside the institutions, you can do quite a bit from inside. That is where the American people failed. And if our trading partners decide to look a different way, can we really blame them? We proved to you that we will put someone back who is so temperamental, who is so detrimental to the world stage, that it's just a net negative for everybody across the board. Everybody. I feel like everybody's going to, except for Russia, of course. Russia is, I'm sure, throwing a ball, but just about everybody else. Maybe China feels pretty good in what they're doing because they can just do whatever they want. If you have power, some military power on that world stage, you're probably feeling okay. But anybody else right now, if you're looking to trade, if you're looking for the future of your country, if you're looking for prosperity, you can no longer look to, you may look to the West, you may look to the European Union, you may look to these things. You no longer look to the United States. And I don't know if we will fully be able to, even in our lifetime, I don't know if we'll fully be able to grasp that impact that has happened just in these last couple of months. The harm that has been done in just the last few months is most likely going to keep cascading down. I can't see it stopping once it gets, the dominoes are going to keep falling. We are most likely, it may be too late. In fact, I think it might be too late for us to ever call ourselves a leader on the world stage again. It's going to be tough, but other countries are going to be vying for it. And why wouldn't they? I believe in an American type of exceptionalism, but if we're not even there, how can we be exceptional? America won't be there. That's not to say that we have to have a presence in every country all the time, but if we're not helping people with things like USAID and we're not controlling things with soft power, we're going to have to control things in another way. I think people don't understand that as well. As Trump rescinds back, if he does have another issue, one of the things about us being nowhere in the world is if we do have to go back, we're going to have to invade. How is that for our power or anything like that? How does that do? There's so many... The domino effect is so real. Have you ever seen the bigger and bigger domino? If you start with like one very small domino, but you increase on the size, the maximum amount you can get to knocking over the Empire State Building before too long. It's that type of domino effect that people don't understand, that the slippery slope, once you get there, that's why they call it slippery, you slip down. Like there is no... When the curve starts curving down, there is no, oh shit, we were just kidding about those tariffs. Oh shit, we were just kidding about that trade policy. You can't go back. You have done this thing to other people in an attacking way. So now they feel attacked, as they should, and they're responding to it as we would. We would do the same thing. We would put retaliatory tariffs. We would look for new trade partners. We wouldn't be beholden to a madman. We're not going to continue trade with somebody like that if they can't meet us on some basic terms. And these are basic terms. United States, we are the aggressors now in this trade war. We are the people pushing and obviously, if you're not somebody in the administration, you're not doing it yourself. But our inability to get them out has caused us quite a bit of a problem. And I think the world will have to deal with the long-term effects of the United States no longer being that presence that it was, and then who will take its place. Nothing happens in a vacuum. If we take a step back, others will take a step forward. Who will take our place, and will they be as kind to the world? Were we kind enough to the world? Maybe we'll see. I think that's one of the easiest arguments to make about, our presence on the world stage is, were we doing any good? Now we will get to see. If nothing else, Trump may show us just how bad things can get before we all decide, hey, that was truly terrible and we need to get our act together. We need the awakening, the human awakening, a revival of the spirit, a renaissance, something to save us from this chase the grind, get as much money as you can, all while people extract all the wealth from the world just to burn it on some stupid boat, to blow it up in the sky and cost you even more money. Like, it's insane. You got enough money so you could control enough pillars and levers of government so you never have to pay any money again. It's the infinite money glitch. Oh, well, we took a loss. Oh, well, the poor people have to pay for it. Well, why do the poor people have to? Like, we have the most money. Yeah, but we got the most money by making the poor people pay for it. We're not going to stop now. It's a crazy cycle. Talked to Dave Ramsey about it. That was hilarious. I don't know if anybody saw that Dave Ramsey clip. That Dave Ramsey clip was fucking insane. Managing money for God. To anybody who thinks that way, who thinks hoarding is the way to go, I got some news for you. It is not the way to go. All right. That's going to be it on tariffs. That is our little TED Talk tariffs, talking about the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, seeing how negative it can really go, because it really can go quite negative, and then just talking about basically what tariffs are and the fact that we don't vilify them outright. I'm not out here to say that all tariffs are bad, or even most tariffs are a terrible thing. I think you just have to look at them for what they are, which one is doing, or which country is doing it, and for what purpose. What type of tariff are they doing, and is there a justification for it? Same thing with military action and stuff like that. It's really easy when you start looking at these things. Russia has no justification for what they're doing, and the people who do justify it sound fucking crazy when you get them to justify it. I've talked to these people. I've had these conversations. When these people get down to it, it is, hey, well, you're not allowed to, make friends and not have us invade you. Why not? Why can't we have groups of people that say, don't invade us? Well, that's not really okay. This is ridiculous. This is a ridiculous line of argumentation. We'll have it all day. I'll have the people on and I'll have the talks. But it is ridiculous to make it sound like there is some legitimate justification, and that's how you sound like when you're trying to justify the Trump tariffs compared to other tariffs. Because there are legitimate ones. When you do say, oh, did you not like this Biden thing? I am more than willing. Pull up the tariff. Let's talk about it. I'll talk about Biden or Kamala's economic plan or whatever the fuck you want. But these Trump tariffs are just wildly being thrown around, and they're harming real people. The pain that they're already talking about. I get to talk about real harm because the presidency has already admitted to causing pain. They're switching to no pain, no gain messaging. So they're saying you're going to go through pain. They harmed you. I never said that. They did. They caused you pain. I wouldn't do that. Me, never. I'd give you extra recess, no homework. I'd make you all principal for the day. Like, trust me, if I was president, we'd have cupcakes and hot fudge sundaes in the cafeteria. We'd have everything. And then get in. No pain, no gain, everybody. Everybody needs to get to fucking work. Everybody needs to do their job. Everybody needs to put their head down and fucking work.